Life could be a dream, life could be a dream. Do, 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 shaboom. Life could be a dream. If I could take you up in paradise up above. If you would tell me I'm the only one that you love. Life could be a dream. Sweetheart, hello, hello again. Shaboom, and open we'll meet again. Boom.
Imagine yourself walking down the street in the 1950s. The chaos of war has finally passed, but a new battle began. The battle for your attention. Streets are choked with flashing neon, and every single wall is plastered with ads. The radio is shouting, and everything you see is visual noise that you just cannot escape. For centuries, Western culture suffered from a fear of empty space. If a wall was blank, we covered it in wallpaper. If a song was too quiet, we filled it with notes. Emptiness was treated like a mistake, a flaw that needed to be fixed. On the opposite part of the planet, the entire civilization built its philosophy on the exact opposite idea. The most powerful part of any design is not what you put in, but rather what you leave out. They call it Ma. And this is the reason why the modern world looks the way it does. To understand what it actually means, we have to look at how this world is built. It consists of two symbols. First one is the door, and second one is the sun. Ma is a Japanese concept that means the meaningful space between things. The character suggests the sunlight shining through a doorway. This reflects the idea that space and emptiness are not simply nothingness, but something that creates meaning, balance, beauty, and clarity. In West, a space is to be seen as something empty until we fill it. For the traditional Japanese art and music, that space was alive. Think of a song. A song isn't just a continuous blast of noise. It is defined by the silence within the notes. If you remove the pauses, the music becomes just static. This is the idea of Ma, the space between things. So now, when we have seen the concept of Ma and what are the core difference between these two philosophies, the question is, how did the quiet East ended up conquering loud West? Well, it actually took its place in the 1950s, when visual noise was reaching its peak. Following with post-war aligned occupation of Japan, at the time when Eastern thoughts were started to quietly flood at American universities. One of the major figures in bringing Japanese ideas to the West was Daisetsu Deidara Suzuki. Beginning in the early 20th century, and especially for his lectures in New York and other Western cities, Suzuki introduced Zen Buddhism to audiences who had little prior exposure to it. He described it as a way of experiencing reality directly, through awareness, simplicity, and attention to the present moment. His writings influenced philosophers, psychologists, artists, and plenty of people. Those ideas soon moved beyond universities and lecture halls. Writers such as Jack Kerouac became fascinated by Zen and incorporated these themes into their works. As one of the leading voices of the Beat generation, Kerouac was searching for an alternative to materialism and conformity of post-war America. Through novels, poetry, and essays, he introduced many readers to the ideas of meditation, detachment, and quiet mind. So from that moment on, the concept of nothingness wasn't seen as empty or boring anymore. It was seen as enlightened. And it actually didn't take so long for pop culture to notice it. In 1968, amidst a world of hyper-colorful, psychedelic rock covers, the Beatles released an album with absolutely nothing on the front. Just a solid, stark expanse of white. The White Album was a massive commercial application of Ma. It's an empty space screamed louder than any graphic design ever could. However, the ultimate transformation happened when this aesthetic left the world of art and entered the world of tech. During the 1970s, a young entrepreneur named Steve Jobs became increasingly fascinated by Zen Buddhism. While many people in the tech industry focus on engineering and functionality, Jobs was drawn to deeper questions about simplicity, perception, and the bond between people and the objects they use. His interest was not casual. Jobs spent hours and years studying Zen and developed a close relationship with Kobun Chinatagawa, a Japanese Zen priest who had moved to the United States. Kobun became one of Jobs' most important spiritual influences, guiding him through meditation and introducing him to Zen principles that emphasize clarity, mindfulness, and the removal of unnecessary distractions. Their relationship lasted for decades and remained significant throughout Jobs' life. Kobun taught Jobs the core tenet of Zen aesthetics, Kanzo, the elimination of clutter in favor of simplicity, and Shizuka, the cultivation of stillness. But when Jobs stayed in technology, he realized that Western engineering is building products that cause cognitive anxiety. They're too demanding, loud, and complex. So he wants to build tools that felt like Zen sanctum. But to do so, he had to introduce the Silicon Valley to the concept of Ma. We can see this philosophy manifesting in his daily life. This photo depicts Jobs sitting on the floor of his large home. The room appears almost empty. There are no rows of furniture, no decorations competing for attention, no sense of access. Besides him, there is a lamp, a cup of tea, and a small record player, surrounded by vast stretches of open space. So long before he built his first minimalistic smartphone, he was already applying the same concepts, the same principles to his own environment. Later on, when Jobs and his chief designer John Ive began working on new Apple products, they found a problem in traditional Western image of phone and computers. They were hyper-clustered. Most phones were covered in physical keyboards, rows of buttons, and visible controls. The assumption was pretty simple. If a product could do more, it should look like it could do more. And actually, in 2007, Apple did something that terrified tech industry. Apple moved in the opposite direction. The company removed the physical keyboard entirely. It reduced the number of buttons to almost nothing. Decorative elements disappeared. Logos were minimized. What remained was a simple object, a smooth surface of black glass interrupted by a single home button. The idea was controversial. To many engineers, that looked like subtraction. To many designers, that looked like confidence. But eventually, emptiness was an actual possibility. The absence of buttons, textures, and distractions created a possibility for cognitive briefing. It created a pause between physical and digital worlds. A quite amusing fact is that this innovation also broke the internet as well. In the late 90s, where portals like Yahoo were franking digital newspapers. Every available inch of screen space was filled with something competing for your attention. Headlines, weather forecasts, stock prices, sports scores, or email links. But then Google appeared with a radically different philosophy. When users opened Google's homepage, they were met with something shocking in its simplicity. A white screen, a colorful logo, and a single search bar sitting quietly in the center. At the first glance, it looked like there was almost nothing there, but that is the point. Google's design removed distractions and directed the user's focus toward a single action, to search for something. So as Japanese culture realized a long time ago, a life without Ma is unsustainable. We need to have space outside the gateways, or sunshine will simply has nowhere to go. Emptiness is not a void to be filled. It is a boundary that gives everything else value.